An excerpt from Master Dressage, from the section Typical Rider Mistakes. Lower leg moving in rising or posting trot, or overuse of the leg. If you find that your lower leg moves forwards and backwards as you do rising trot, then it may be that you are either using your legs too much, or that your rising trot mechanism isn't correct. If it's because you are using the leg each time you sit, then you need to rethink how you are training your horse to go from your leg aids. Each time you use your leg, you should get a result. The horse should move more forwards than he was doing before. If you use your leg simply to keep the horse going, you are training him to ignore your leg, since you are essentially saying, "My leg means do nothing different." I generally find it easy to teach a person on a lazy horse to train the horse to be more sensitive. Firstly, you have to become extremely responsible about how you use your leg. As the coach, I often say to the rider that they can only use their leg when I say, "leg." Upon using the leg, the rider must expect the horse to move forwards. If there is no response to the leg aid, the rider will need to repeat the aid and at the same time give the horse a tap with the whip. This should be enough to make the horse step forwards. The rider, of course, should be expecting this and be sat securely in place and allow the horse to move more forwards. Then we go back to being still with the leg. In this way, we can teach the horse that the leg means go with more energy. Gradually, you will teach him that he should be going willingly forwards as a default state. We should not have to nag and kick just to have him stay and trot. Remember, the responsibility of the horse is to keep doing what you last told him to do, and it's your responsibility to make it the easiest thing for him to comply. If your lower leg is moving of its own accord, and you can't keep it still no matter how hard you try, then help is at hand. Firstly, be comforted by the fact that a lot of people have this problem. It's not just you. It's also not a sign that you are somehow inept. It's just that you don't know how yet. Once you have the right how, you will get it. Mary Wanless has an excellent video on tempo control which talks about the rising trot mechanism and how it should work. At the end of the book, I have a resources section for such helpful videos. In essence, it boils down to whether you are kneeling up and down to do rising trot or standing up and down by pushing off your foot. If you push off your foot to do rising trot, you will not be able to help moving your lower leg. It helps to think of the knee as the pivot point and kneeling up and down with no weight changing in the foot and the lower leg being still. Watch the video from the resources section, well worth the investment of time. To understand the mechanics of the rising trot, we should ask ourselves the question, why do we do rising trot? On the sit and on the top of the rise, the horse has a single diagonal pair on the ground as in photo 10. He jumps between the diagonal pairs and we are either going up or going down for the duration of the jump. Now imagine that we do a small rise. What would be the consequence of that? Firstly, it restricts the height the horse is encouraged to jump, and therefore the length of the stride. Secondly, it always means that we are behind the movement and not matching the forces generated by the horse. In the rising trot, the lower leg should stay still and the pelvis describes the arc of the circle with a still knee at the centre point. My ability to create impulsion, cadence and tracking up increased dramatically the day my teacher Mary Wanless described this to me all those years ago. You can see that in photo 10, Millie has got to the top of the rise, but one thing to point out is that she got there smoothly matching the forces generated by the horse. It is possible to overthrust and be doing more than the horse is giving, but generally I see riders underthrusting and keeping their horse underpowered. Millie, in this photograph, is also a little hollow in her back, which isn't ideal, meaning she has lengthened her front on the way up. The length of the front and the length of the back should remain the same. There has been a tendency to want to make a smaller rise to slow the horse down if it's too fast. However, we end up with small quick steps. It is better to slow the speed with which you go from the bottom of the rise to the top and from the top of the rise to the bottom. Watch Mary's video for an explanation. It's very useful.